This conference will now be recorded.
So good afternoon all. Now we are on day 3 and today is our third session. It will be handled by our expert of today, Dr. Brinda Gupta. She is with the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering at NIT Kurukshetra. Ma'am, I welcome you for our 5-day online FDP program on high-speed wireless and optical communication technology for covering global network. So this session will be of around 1.5 hours. Now I formally ask our student Ashi Gupta to kindly introduce the speaker to the participants. Over to you, Ashi.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Brinda Gupta received her bachelor's degree in electronics engineering from Nagpur University, master's and PhD degree in electronics and communication engineering from Kurukshetra University and NIT Kurukshetra respectively. Dr. Brinda Gupta has worked as an engineering teacher for 27 years. She has taught to graduate and undergraduate students of ECE and is currently heading the Department of ECE at NIT Kurukshetra. She has teaching and research interests in the field of communication networks and Internet of Things. And she has carried out her doctoral research in the area of wireless sensor networks. She has authored more than 65 publications in reputed international journals and has edited books and proceedings of conferences hosted in India and abroad. Today she'll be talking about wireless sensor networking in the Internet of Things and cloud computing era. We welcome you, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Ashi. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Thank you. So the topic of today's talk is wireless sensor networking in the Internet of Things and cloud computing era. All of you are familiar to this today's environment, isn't it? We are all living in this IoT and cloud computing era. So the table of contents is giving the brief outline of the talk. I'll be briefly introducing the environment, that is what is IoT and its architectural features and the enabling technologies that has enabled it, the cloud computing paradigm, and then I'll be switching to sensor networks. So what is wireless sensor networking and what are its challenges and other limitations and issues of concern. So basically it will be covering so many topics, as you can see in this outline. That is about the lifetime of sensor networks requirement, about the other issues like data fusion, topology control, coverage, clustering, and finally concluding with the help of applications. Thank you. So what is IoT? So you should all be familiar to the today's era, that is Internet of Things. We have observed so many technological revolutions in the recent past, including transition that is from analog world into its digital counterpart, from centralized wired solution to distributed and pervasive wireless systems. So we all want that now every information around us should be analyzed, should be collected and analyzed, stored and analyzed. This requirement is to improve the efficiency, the production efficiency, and to ensure optimal resource consumption. That is an important concern of nowadays, that the resource consumption should be optimal. So Internet of Things is the capability of connecting every possible device to the World Wide Web. That is the practical answer to this request. It could handle using cloud services. What is cloud services we'll be dealing with? It is a flexible and powerful hardware and software framework capable to deliver computing as a service. So about IoT, it is about embedding intelligence so that things become smarter and do more than they were proposed to do. IoT contains things which have unique characteristics. IoT is not confined to just interfacing things like machines, gadgets to the internet, but it grants these things to connect and exchange information. That is important, that it should be able to exchange information and fuse the data related with the customers while exchanging and executing high applications. So IoT is a system of web-connected objects which are ready to gather and trade information utilizing sensors embedded on a system. It involves Internet of Things, and the devices which have unique identities can perform remote sensing, actuating, monitoring. They are called the things in IoT. IoT is also called by different names like Internet of Everything. You might have heard certain of these names. Internet of Everything is just planning to incorporate a wide range of association that you can imagine. Machine to machine is another term nowadays popular in telecommunication area. It refers to communications and interactions between machines and devices. Such interactions can occur via cloud computing infrastructure. Machine to machine is a term introduced by telecommunication service providers. And the emphasis is on machine interactions via one or more telecommunication networks. Telecommunication networks you must be familiar with, like we have 5G nowadays running, satellite networks, etc. So machine to machine is a part of IoT. We have also other terms related called Industrial Internet of Things. It refers to the use of Internet of Things in industrial sector and applications in industrial sector. So industrial applications, it is encompassing, including you can think of robotics, medical devices, software-defined production processes, etc. And nowadays, another term popular is Industry 4.0. What it is referring to? A new phase in industrial revolution has taken place. And similarly, in the education sector also now we have Education 4.0 revolution. So this refers to 4 is significant for the revolution. It is focusing heavily on interconnectivity, automation, machine learning, real-time data. So Industry 4.0 can also be called as the Industrial Internet of Things, or you can say by the term smart manufacturing. So in the manufacturing sector, the production and the operations, they are being married with smart digital technology, big data, machine learning to create a better connected ecosystem for companies that is specifically focusing on manufacturing, supply chain management, etc. The enabling technologies. There are several technologies, including wireless sensor networks, cloud computing, big data analytics, communication protocols, embedded systems. These are various technologies that has made it possible for Internet of Things to come into picture. What are wireless sensor networks? Deeply will be concerning in today's talk. Just introducing here, it is sensors are networked here using wireless technology and can cooperatively monitor and all the conditions which are existing in the environment, whether environmental or physical conditions could be monitored with cooperative nature. So various features, challenges, etc. I'll be dealing in details about this technology. So not into much here, okay? So now about cloud computing. It's a computing paradigm, as I just now said. It is involving delivering of applications and services over the internet. It also involves provisioning of computing, networking, and storage resources on demand, and providing these resources as metered services to the users in pay-as-you-go model. The process of provisioning of services is automated. So more details in cloud computing we'll be dealing with. And the technology which has enabled IoT is big data analytics. All of you may be familiar, so much data is being collected by the sensors. Everywhere sensors are being deployed in all applications you can think of, you can imagine. So those collection of data, whose volume, the velocity in terms of temporal variation, variety, is so large that it is difficult to store, manage, process, and analyze the data using traditional databases and data processing tools that is in existence. So we have this now big data analytics. Apart from these technologies, communication protocols takes an important place. They form the backbone of the IoT system. They enable network connectivity and allow communication through applications. Communication protocols are there which allow devices to exchange data over the network. We have embedded systems. That's a computer system that has computer hardware and software embedded to perform specific tasks. Embedded systems are designed to perform a specific set of tasks, in contrast to the general purpose computers or the PCs you have at your places, which can perform various types of tasks. So embedded system is simple computer system only, which has computer hardware, software, but it is designed to perform specific tasks only. The conceptual framework of IoT, what IoT consists of: an internetwork of devices, physical objects which are internetworked, wherein number of objects like sensors and other devices which can gather the data. So gathering is first of all, first step. They gather the data at remote locations and communicate it to the units for managing, acquiring, organizing, analyzing of the data in the services, in the processes as required. So various steps are involved in this. Gather, the below equation is showing gather plus consolidate plus connect plus collect plus assemble plus analyze, manage. So that all together forms Internet of Things with connectivity to the cloud services. So this equation is representing the conceptual framework. It's a complex equation for IoT using cloud-based platform for the processes and the services. So first step you can see is the gathering of the data of the devices, that is things in the Internet of Things using sensors. The sensors are then connected to the gateway. The data is then consolidated at the second level. The gateway at the level 2 communicates the data between higher levels 2 and 3 through the communication management system. The informative services, they consist of connect, collect, assemble, and manage subsystems. These are the subsystems at higher level, that is level 3 and 4. Then we have the real-time series, that is analysis, data analytics, intelligence subsystem. They are at level 4 and 5. So a cloud infrastructure acquires the data like this. So that is conceptual framework, just to give a picture what IoT consists of. The architectural view you can see here. So multiple levels you can see, as I was saying, level 1, level 2, level 3, 4, and 5. Different companies, organizations, they are developing their own architecture. Like Cisco has developed it, so 7-layer architecture. Oracle and IBM have different architecture, but in general, the idea is, so this is just giving you a view of that. So a reference model is designed that is required to specify the reference architecture. Several reference architectures are coexisting in the IoT domain. It's not a one single architecture, as I'm saying. Different organizations, according to their requirements, their specific requirements of the organization, they have developed the architecture of the IoT system. It is serving as a reference in the applications of IoT, in the services and in the business processes. So set of sensors are first of all required. They are smart devices. They capture the data. They perform necessary data element analysis, and they are connected to a gateway. The gateway is receiving the data in one form and at one end and sends it to another form at the other end. Data routes from the gateway through the internet and data center to the application server or the enterprise server, you can say, which acquires the data. The organizations and analysis subsystems enable the services, business processes, enterprise integration, and complex processes. So this is just giving a glimpse of the architectural view, that it is organized into layers, like layered architecture. You know, any computer network you have in existence, it is all giving a layered architecture. So reference architecture, for this, a reference model has been designed, and different organizations are following different reference architectures. But in general, you can see, so it could be 5-layer, 7-layer, 3-layer even. So perception layer is there, then network layer is there for communicating whatever data has been gathered through the data gathering process. It is transmitted, then it is analyzed in the middle layer, and then given to the application server, and different organizations then use that data. The examples of IoT. The applications of IoT spans wide range of domain, including and not only home sector, city, environment, energy system, retail, logistics, industry, agriculture, health sector. So it has wide range of applications. In every domain you can imagine, IoT has been used and is projected to be used. For home, IoT has several applications, such as smart lighting that adapt to suit the ambient condition. So that is called smart lighting, which is adapted to according to the room condition. Smart appliances can be remotely monitored, controlled. Intrusion detection system could be used. Smart smoke detectors could be employed, etc. For cities, IoT has applications such as smart parking system that provides status update on available slot, smart lighting that helps in saving energy, smart roads that provide information on the driving condition, and the structural health monitoring systems are also employed in smart cities. Industrial applications of IoT include machine diagnosis and prognosis systems that help in predicting faults and determining the cause of fault, and could be indoor air quality system. For health sector, IoT has applications such as health and fitness monitoring. So many fitness trackers are there, systems are there, wearable electronics is there, used for healthcare sector. So various applications you can find of IoT. In spite of all this, it has threats even, and opportunities of course exist. IoT is making all organizations are towards ensuring that IoT design must ensure trust, data security, privacy. Security is important. For example, consider ATM messages. They should communicate on internet securely. If any distortion occurs, it can lead to serious consequences. So security distortion should not occur in such critical applications. Privacy is also important. The video clips communicate on the internet in a smart home. So for the security application, the clips should not reach to unrelated entities. Otherwise, it will lead to serious breach of home security. So in any sector you think of the application sector, it has this security concern. Apart from that, it has opportunities as already highlighted. It is enhancing communication, exchange of data is taking place, the lifestyle has changed, and the delivery of services, of course, being flexible. What is cloud computing? Another important era we are into. Many definitions have been proposed in both the academic sector and the industry sector for describing the concept of cloud computing. One which is provided by National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, states that cloud computing is a model for enabling convenient on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources. Example, networks, you have servers, storage units, applications, services that can be provisioned rapidly and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. So cloud computing is a term used to describe not only a platform but also an application. It's a type of application, you can say. In a cloud computing platform, instead of having local servers for collecting and managing information coming from applications, remotely located servers, they are dynamically provisioned and reconfigured according to actual need. So cloud computing is also describing those applications that can be remotely accessed through the internet. Such cloud applications exploit large data centers and powerful servers, similar to web application and web services we use every day. So cloud computing has various service models. It can provide different service levels, which are hierarchically organized. One is software as a service. This model is providing services to the clients according to their request. You can think of a single service that is executed on the cloud. It can be used by multiple end users. So there's no need of investment on the client side for the hardware or the software licenses. You have another model that is platform as a service. So cloud computing model provides application softwares. It is providing development environment as a service. Other high level of service applications, software applications could be executed with cloud computing. The user here, the client, has the freedom to create his own application that can be executed by the infrastructure of the provider. You have another model that is infrastructure as a service. This model provides basic storage and computing capability as standardized service over the network. Here the user need not buy its own hardware like the software, need not buy its own hardware or the software, servers, storage systems, networking devices. it would execute its own application, exploiting the workload offered by the infrastructure. So these are the service models that a cloud computing has. Sorry. Cloud computing models. The way in which the cloud infrastructure is operated, it differs. So with that, we have different cloud computing models can be defined, like private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, community cloud. So again, it is defined based on the way in which the cloud infrastructure is operated. So if it is operated completely managed by an organization, then it is private cloud. A private cloud goal is to maximize, the goal for the organization here is to maximize the efficiency in the use of resource available in it. You have public cloud, that is one based on the standard cloud computing model. Here the service provider makes resources available to the general public over the internet. The resources, they may be provided free or offered on a pay-per-usage model. Benefit is that it will lower the cost in setting up of the system. You have hybrid cloud, that is integrated cloud service, utilizing both private and public cloud to perform various functions within the same organization. So cloud computing service should offer certain efficiency, it is expected, to different degrees. They are likely to be more cost efficient and scalable than private cloud. The hybrid cloud has this benefit. The community cloud is a multi-tenant infrastructure that is shared among several organizations from a specific group with common computing issues. So you have the community cloud model. The organizing principle for this community cloud would be different, but the members of the community generally would share similar requirements in terms of security, privacy, performance, compliance would be there among them. So that would be called the community cloud. So how the infrastructure is operated, in that way we have these models designed. Cloud-based IoT architecture, as already highlighted, you can see in this picture, you have, this is a showing just simple model, the architecture, 3 layers, sensing layer, networking layer, and the application layer. So in the sensing layer, you have the things, the embedded devices, and the physical objects like the RFID, cameras, sensors, any object can act as the sensor. Then the data is gathered by it, then communicated through the communication protocol over the internet. So that forms the networking layer through the gateway, and then transferred to the application layer where it is various application protocols, you know, HTTP, FTP, etc. They operate, and various applications domains are there, like already highlighted, healthcare, city sector, etc. So various applications could be existed. After having this environment in which we are nowadays living, that is Internet of Things, IoT, and cloud computing era, we come to our topic of concern, that is about wireless sensor networking in Internet of Things and cloud computing era. All of you are familiar to sensors, so I'll be also dealing with in detail about the sensor. So sensor network already I've introduced in the previous slide. WSN, that is wireless sensor network, that is sensors which are networked wirelessly. They operate wirelessly. They have these capabilities, like they can sense the environment, perform computation also. They are also capable to communicate. So they have various capabilities: communication capability, processing capability, storage capability, sensing capability, of course. So wireless sensor network is consisting of such large number of sensor nodes which are equipped with these capabilities. What made it possible? Why we are so much now into sensor network technology? Everywhere you are finding sensors being deployed. In any application domain, you think you have sensors deployed. So why now? Sensors are age-old devices. It's not that it has come up now, it is emerged now. But the technologies which have emerged, which has enabled this wireless sensor network technology to exist, that is the advancements in the wireless communication, in the very large scale integration technology, in the micro electromechanical systems development. So such advancements have made it possible to have wireless sensor network into popularity nowadays. What is the architecture of a sensor node? This slide is showing the architecture of a sensor node. The hardware of it comprises of various functional blocks. So you can call it a functional block diagram of a sensor node. It has units called basically the sensing unit, the processing unit, the communicating unit, and of course the power unit is there. So sensing unit comprises of not only the sensors, they are multifunctional sensors. Need not be one type only, like I'll be in the next slide, you'll see the types of sensors. So they are multifunctional. In one itself node, you can have multifunctional sensors embedded. And sensors, what they are doing, you know that they gather the data from the environment in whatever ambient condition they are deployed. And the data may be in analog form, so it may be required to convert it into digital form. So for that, you have ADCs also embedded, analog to digital converters. So that comprises of the sensing unit. Then you have the processing unit, because whatever data is being gathered, it may be required to be processed. As we'll go further into, you will come to know why processing is required on the data, why not raw data is transmitted as it is to the end user. It would also have a storage unit along with it for storage purpose of the data. After processing, pre-processing is done, it is ready to be communicated. So for that you have transceiver, transmitter plus receiver. So also, of course, antenna would be there. Apart from that, in the dash line blocks, you can see 3 blocks: location finding system, mobilizer, etc. Location finding system is for finding the location of the sensor node, where it is located. Otherwise, they are not location aware devices. So to have them give their location, that from where this data has come, then you need to have them equipped with location finding system, such as GPS. They could be equipped with GPS. It's an optional. But other units, as I already highlighted, sensing, processing, transceiving, they are the compulsory units, power unit. And also mobilizer unit may be optional, like they are usually stationary devices, but certain applications may require them to be mobile. Then for that, mobility could also be provided. You have usually the power being generated through batteries. They are battery equipped devices, but otherwise you can have now alternate resources, energy sources. For that you can have other, like you have so many types of alternate renewable sources, you know, solar energy could be used, vibration energy could be used, etc. The example of sensors. So as I said, they could be multifunctional. One sensor node could have multifunctional sensors. You have so many parameters which are to be measured. So in the environment or any application, anywhere you have so many applications of the sensor networks even. So to measure any parameter, you have types of sensors already familiar. You are for pressure measurement, for temperature measurement, for acoustic measurement, for mechanical sensors, you have for vibration measurement, motion measurement, anemometer for flow measurement, GPS for position measurement, and so on. So this slide is giving just typical example sensors. The glimpse of the sensor node. So in commercially available sensor nodes which are generated, they are looking like this. You have various universities, Colorado University, Berkeley University, Rice University, they have developed different sensor nodes. Even revolutions has taken place in sensor node development. You have generations 1, 2, 3, etc. In each generation, as you know, the cost has decreased, the size has decreased. So like mobile, for development of mobile equipment, similarly for the sensor node development, you have the generations. One of the example is of the Berkeley moat. It is also called moat. In certain literature you may find for the sensor node, the term used is MOTE, moat. It is called Mica 2. It is running on the tiny operating system. It has embedded processor, as we learned. So Atmega 128L 8-bit processor could be used, equipped with RAM, ROM, etc. Chipcon CC100 is the transceiver deployed here, and it has the specification like the transmission range. So to how many meters or feet it has the maximum transmission range, etc. The features. Wireless sensor network has typical features. They are ad hoc in deployment. Ad hoc in nature in what way? Ad hoc term you understand, not fixed, not regular infrastructure is there. They are just irregularly deployed, need not be very precisely deployed. They are of various capabilities, as we know. They have this capability of self-configuring because they are deployed in such environments where faults may occur, they may fail, and then they need to adapt themselves. There is no fixed regular infrastructure, as I said, no topology is fixed, so they need to self-configure. They are usually unattended, meaning that they are deployed where human intervention is not possible. They are usually battery powered, they are usually densely deployed, because in such a large area applications are there. You can think of very large area applications like in forests, under ocean, or any other place in space, even under mines, anywhere they are deployed. So they are usually densely deployed. The reason for that we'll be highlighting why. There are a number of reasons why they are densely deployed. They have short radio range. The communication range is short. It could be typically 10 meters or so on. Depending on the application, of course, it could go up to 30 meters indoor application, 100 meters outdoor application. They have this nature of data-centric type. Other devices, you know, they are address-centric. Each has a unique global IP address, we say. Each computer or whatever you have. But these sensors, they are not address-centric, they are data-centric. Here, the interest is of only the data. What is the data they are collecting, not which sensor is collecting. So the identity of the sensor is not required. So no global identification is here. One of the paradigm they can operate is query based. So depending on the query, whatever request is there, depending on that, they can deliver the response. So query based addressing could be used. They are event driven devices. They could be continuous monitoring type also, continuous reporting type. or event driven. Only when certain event occurs, then report the data. So such devices are event driven devices. They are usually prone to failure. Number of reasons why they are prone to failures in the next slides also it will come. They operate in broadcast paradigm. The communication mode is broadcast. They broadcast whatever data they have gathered, because no location is there, no ID is there, so to whom to communicate. So addressing is not used. They just broadcast whatever data they have gathered. The ones which are in its neighborhood, which can communicate and reach to the neighbor sensors, they would receive that data because they have this capability of transmitting and receiving also. So one of the mode in which they operate will be shown in the later slides. They are of cooperative in nature. They do cooperate, like in this I am saying that they transfer the data, whatever they have gathered, through exchange of messages. Various control of messages, of course, are required for any data transfer. The data gathered may be redundant. Redundancy in information may exist here. Why I'm saying that? Because they're not manually very specifically located. They are maybe airdropped, okay, just thrown away in the environment. So maybe that certain sensors are very closely spaced and may gather the same data, same reading. If you are sensing temperature value, may sense the same. Many sensors in nearby location, in one corner of the place, they may sense the same data. So redundancy would be there in the data. Same data would be captured by all the sensors in nearby space located. And that's why they have this feature. Challenges are there in wireless sensor networking. Number of challenges. Though the applications are there, but then challenges are also there. One of the major challenges is energy. Everywhere you find energy, energy, energy. What is the reason? Because they are energy constrained devices. Here they are usually battery operated, as we said, where once the battery gets depleted, it has to be recharged. So the lifetime of a sensor node is very finite, very definite. It will fail if its battery gets depleted. So what is done usually, recharging, because human intervention is not possible, then recharging is not possible, then we just replace the sensors. They are produced in masses, they are cheaply available, so they can be simply again replaced. They have no fixed infrastructure. They are operating in hostile environment, in volcanic eruption, forest fire, etc. Certain applications are such hostile. Frequent topology changes occur. As I said, topology change is not fixed and it may change. So they need to self-configure. They need to adapt because no fixed infrastructure is there. Must adapt to the system, to the environmental dynamics effect is there. They are weather prone, just deployed in the environment. So even in forests, if they are deployed, animals may destroy them while moving, or weather may destroy them. The networking here is wireless usually. That's why the name wireless sensor networks. They have this limitation, not only energy limitation, but communication range limitation. The maximum range that one node can communicate is limited. And in the environment, path loss also occurs. So susceptible wireless communication is being taken care of here. So susceptible to path loss depending on the distance of transmission. Hardware constraint is of course there. Limited computational capability. The size has been reduced, and with that, the storage capacity, the processor capability is limited. Security issue do arise. Malicious users may destroy or change the readings. So because they are usually unattended. So certain requirements are there. So these are various challenges sensor networks face. Energy constraint, computation constraint, communication constraint, ad hoc deployment, storage constraint. Scalability issue is there. We need to have them scalable. Fault tolerance is one requirement. They should be able to tolerate the fault if any fault occurs because of various reasons as discussed, topology change or battery depletion. Power consumption limitation is there. In application scenarios in IoT, it has challenges again because of the data volume, the data heterogeneity, types of sensors are so many, and the data being gathered is heterogeneous in nature. The volume of the data gathered is very big, and the dynamic IoT landscapes where they are deployed, it is also dynamic, it is not static. So various challenges are there for wireless sensor networking in IoT domain. One of the important metric, as we discussed, is lifetime. The sensor node has a small lifetime as highlighted, not very large lifetime. They are depleted of their power, their energy, and then they fail. Their lifetime is over. They are non-functional, dead nodes. The devices, sensor devices, their power consumption is basically due to the sensing unit, the transceiving unit, the processing unit, as already discussed, the components you have seen in the slide, the functional components a sensor node has. So sensing unit is consuming very negligible of energy while sensing operation. The processing unit is also doing computation, and it is also consuming smaller level of energy. But the transceiving unit, as you are seeing the radio part, that radio can exist in 4 modes: transmitting, receiving, idle mode, and sleep mode. As in this diagram, you can see in the power consumption of a node subsystem, maximum energy consumption is there in the transmitting part. So while the node is in the transmitting mode, it is consuming maximum energy. Then you are seeing that almost equal energy is being consumed in reception mode and in idle mode, but very little energy is consumed in the sleep mode. And we'll see to this issue. But here the comparison is between the sensing, processing, and the communication. So communication is dominating the energy budget. So maximum energy consumption is the communication unit. It is accounting for more than 90% of the energy consumption per node, as you saw in the previous slide. Also, it is showing that idle mode is preferable, or not have shown that idle mode is comparable. It should not be in the idle mode, should not be kept in the idle mode, it should be kept in the sleep mode. So it is not preferable. It is comparable to the reception mode. So reception, while receiving data also executed, and therefore energy consumption is there. In the idle listening mode, energy cost is there because it is an overhearing mode. And what is desirable is to turn off the radio, we say, in the sleep mode. It should not be on. Radio should be turned off, okay, to minimize energy consumption, and that is desirable. The performance metrics, while analyzing the performance of a sensor network, various metrics you can choose which are desirable. And lifetime is to be prolonged, you know. So energy efficiency is measured in terms of system lifetime. Most of the research that has undergone into wireless sensor networks, that has taken into consideration the system lifetime and measure as the parameter performance metric. The latency is also an important issue. You may see that certain applications are critical, they cannot tolerate delay. So latency is the term responsible for that. So what is the response time? How much time the data comes at the end user? That shows the latency. After the request has been made, the response comes after how much time. The accuracy is also desirable, you know, because whatever reading they are measuring, they should be accurate, accurately delivered, accurately measured, The scalability is desirable. The algorithms should be designed which make them scalable. Throughput is another metric. The cost is, of course, a performance metric. You know, in any device, the production cost is important. Any network, it should be fault tolerant. It should be tolerated the fault. If any fault occurs, the network should be functional. It should not be non-functional or dysfunctional. So it should be robust to individual node failure. If any particular node is dead due to any reason or faulty, then also the network should function. So that is the desirable feature. The types of wireless sensor networks in various domains, it has application in underwater, as I said, in terrestrial and aerial. So underwater sensor networks have been nowadays under research. You have terrestrial mobile wireless sensor networks where they are linked with vehicles for mobility. You can equip it with the robot on a vehicle, mount it, and it can be made mobile with that for surveillance, for object tracking, for monitoring wildlife in forests, etc. They can be made aerial by using unmanned aerial vehicles. Nowadays, the topic of research is UAVs, for again surveillance and space applications, multimedia data gathering application, they could be deployed. Another issue of concern is aggregation. Aggregation, without aggregation means where you are not doing any processing function, no pre-processing is being done, raw data is being transmitted. Then what is happening? The data redundancy exists, as already explained. Communication cost is there. Every node is transmitting its data. Interference would be there. So much of transmissions would be there because they are densely deployed. Then interference would be there, and redundancy would be there in the data, and cost, of course, energy cost would be there in communication, you know, because cost of transmitting is more than processing. So why not to process the data? Why to report raw data directly? So it is not necessary to report the raw data directly. So we do use aggregation. Aggregation function is to do certain processing. So processor, it is embedded with, so that can perform simple operations, statistical operations, or signal processing operations can be performed. So data aggregation is one such function. That is, if you are using statistical operations to perform aggregation, then it is for processing, then it is data aggregation. If you are using signal processing operations, then it is called data fusion. You have other protocols, approaches to reduce data communication. One of the approach you will say is for data communication reduction is to minimize the transmissions, the number of packets data to be transmitted. So with aggregation, you can reduce, you can summarize. Aggregation is nothing but summarizing, combining the data from various sources into one packet. Multiple sources data is combined at certain place and reduced to one packet. So that is aggregating of the data. Through any means you can do, whatever is the type of application, the requirement, you can minimize the number of packets. So volume of transmission could be reduced in that way. You have topology control also as one of the approach we'll be dealing with in detail to some extent. Aggregation in sensor networks, it is to minimize the traffic load, as I said. The number of transmissions, the volume of transmissions can be reduced. Redundancy in the data exists and that can be eliminated. It is using data-centric approach, not the address-centric approach explained. Application-specific attribute-based naming is used. So depending on the application, you know, sensor nodes are application-specific devices, and it is not address-based naming, but attribute-based naming. Attribute like if you want temperature above 70 degrees centigrade, that's an attribute. So a query can be sent, query-based addressing could be there, that whenever temperature is above 70 degrees centigrade, then report the data. it is replacing the traditional approach that was in networking, that was address-centric approach for data forwarding. One of the protocol which is widely used is directed diffusion. For energy saving, it is designed, it is allowing in-network aggregation of the redundant information. So data which is being gathered, it may be redundant, it may be duplicate, so it can be reduced by allowing in-network. Inside the network itself, certain operations could be performed, processing could be done that could make it energy saving. By reducing the volume, the size of the transmissions could be reduced, the number of transmissions could be reduced. Aggregation functions, as I said, it could be duplicate suppression. If any duplicate exists in the readings, that can be suppressed by computing simple operations like averaging, minimizing, maximizing. So these functions can be performed: maximum, minimum, average, and it could transmit one packet from multiple input. So many nodes are there, A, B, C, D, they are all representing the nodes and the sink where the data is being collected. So certain nodes could act as the aggregator nodes. So shown by solid circles, they are the aggregators E, F, and G. So multiple data from A and B sources could be combined as one into at E place, then further combined at G, E, and F sources data is combined at G, and finally one packet is being delivered to the sink. So like this in the network, in-network aggregation function could be performed. So as I said, aggregation is one name and another is data fusion. If it is using other techniques, signal processing techniques for reduction of the data, for aggregation of the data, then it is called data fusion. So it is reducing the overhead in the data collection. Otherwise, it is just control information. So many packets being delivered. Each packet has to be packetized. So many control information, error control bits, etc. Are to be appended. And it is therefore reducing the overhead. It is eliminating the redundancy. It is minimizing the transmission. It is ultimately leading to saving of energy by minimizing the number of transmissions. Factors which are affecting data aggregation are many, like where you are placing the aggregation point, that is one issue. So how many times you are aggregating, where the aggregators are placed, what function is being performed for aggregation, what is the number of sensors deployed, the density, all these factors do affect data aggregation. Other approaches using collaborative signal processing, raw data would be then pre-processed, as we said. So that is using data fusion. Two approaches again are used here, non-coherent and coherent. In coherent, it will be tagged with timestamp and then uploaded to the central node. Example of that could be called beam forming. So that's a signal processing technique called beam forming. So which one is suitable when? Depends on the traffic, the data stream. If it is long, it is preferable to use coherent type. It is combining various interdisciplinary techniques like low power communication, computation, space-time signal processing, distributed and fault-tolerant algorithms, adaptive systems, sensor fusion, and decision theory. Various techniques are being used in this collaborative signal processing. Something about data fusion already discussed. So data fusion means again combining of the information, so aggregation of the information, but using other techniques of signal processing. So processing is there here. So data fusion process is there. So it is first gathering the data, then combining it, and then sending it. The need already highlighted, because the readings may be unreliable, may be redundant, so it is better to combine them. And challenges are of course there. Again, in this, any technique you use, challenges are going to exist. The sensors are uncertain, the dynamics is there in the environment, whatever already we have highlighted in the wireless sensor networks, challenges exist here too. prone to errors, etc. So you need to address these questions: when to have this process done, how to do it, what architecture to use to do it. Architectures could be again various types: centralized approach, decentralized approach, hierarchical approach. Each has its own advantage and disadvantage. Centralized is not preferable. It is inflexible here. Workload is not balanced here. And advantages are of course there. Decentralized approach is also existing. It should be used, but more preferable is the hierarchical approach because of the reasons we'll see in the one of the further slides. In the hierarchical approach, here how hierarchical means in various levels it is being managed, because the nodes may be many, large number. So to manage a complex network, a huge network would be difficult. So to manage it distributed, of course, nature would be there, but then into hierarchical, organized into hierarchical levels, ground level, then level 1, level 2, like tiers may be there, and it would be useful to manage the network. And of course, load balancing would be achieved with this. Another issue of concern is the topology control. As we know that the network of sensors is dense, in huge density they are deployed, then you have this topology control issue springing up. How to achieve topology control? There is no fixed topology like you have star topology, mesh topology, not so regularly deployed, because the applications are such where they cannot be deployed regularly. So they are ad hoc deployed, as we have already learned. They have so many constraints that make this issue important, significant. Interference would exist, energy constraint is there. So topology control is reducing the number of transmissions, as we'll see. So saving of energy will be there, interference would be reduced, and so on. Various techniques are there to achieve it, as we'll explain later on. Purpose is again same, motivation, that to reduce the energy consumption, to maintain connectivity, to reduce the interference, to increase the throughput. It is preferable to do topology control, to have such algorithms developed which can achieve topology control. The approaches used for achieving topology control could be divided by node activity scheduling. It could be, as we already learned, that a node, the sensor node, here node is in general called this for the sensor. It could be called as sensor itself, or sensor node, or sensor node itself. So you can turn on or off the node to, otherwise it will be in radio on mode. So you can deliberately turn off to save energy, by to have all the nodes on when they are gathering the same information. Redundant data is coming, you know that they are very closely spaced. So the best thing is to, due to cycle, to turn it off, its radio part to be turned off. So that is called controlling of the node activity could be done, or controlling of the link activity could be done. Deliberately you can use or not use certain link. So these could be one of the options to achieve topology control. Another option could be, depending on the network, you have flat network, hierarchical network, how the nodes have been organized. If they are on a flat one level only, not into hierarchical structure deployed, then all nodes are assigned the same role, means all are playing the same activities. Then you can have a topology control using power control approach. But if they are organized into hierarchical structure, then you can, through this other techniques like clustering, backbone construction, you can achieve topology control. So we have basically number of methods to achieve topology control: by turning off the radios part when not in use, that is duty cycling; by partitioning of the network into clusters, that is clustering; by minimizing the transmission part, that is power control; by constructing a virtual backbone, that is backbone construction. So strategies are there, as already highlighted. The advantages are there. It is going to enhance the network capacity, going to reduce the interference, going to reduce the contention, going to save energy and reduce the packet delay. The approaches used could be centralized, distributed, as already seen in any issue. You will find these approaches. Centralized version is there, and then distributed version has been developed. Then hybrid even has been developed. So you have the approaches: transmission power control, activity scheduling, backbone construction, clustering. These are the various classes of topology control mechanisms. Briefly just introducing transmission power control. What do you mean by controlling transmission power? Various classes are again further into depth. If you go, you have so many types of transmission power control research going into. How to control the transmission power means with what power the node should transmit its data. So that is a control of transmission power. They are self-configuring, adaptive in nature, cooperative in nature. They can control the transmission power with what power they should transmit. Need not transmit with the total power they are equipped with. Can minimize it. So that is called, depending on the neighbors, they can identify the neighbor, at what distance the neighbor is. According to that, they can control the transmission power. Backbone construction method could be used by having certain nodes only. Out of the total network nodes, certain nodes could be selected and form a connected dominating set. So that construction is called the backbone construction method. Virtual backbone could be made, and non-backbone nodes then could turn off their radio to save the energy. Only the backbone nodes, they would be responsible for relaying of the messages, because messages here have to be relayed also. They are cooperating. One node is sensing the data, transferring to the nearby nodes in the broadcast paradigm mode, and receiving the data and then further transmitting so that the data ultimately reaches to the base station or to the sink. Node activity scheduling approach is also there. So activity could be scheduled by turning on or off the node. That is activity scheduling approach. Duty cycling, duty control is there. So with that, you can achieve this. Clustering is another in certain detail. I'll come into it. That is for the hierarchical network. So how you are organizing the nodes. So grouping them into various clusters. That is called clustering method. How to cluster the nodes. They have been just dropped and no fixed infrastructure. So how to organize them into clusters and into hierarchical structure. So that is the process called clustering. The advantages you already know, that if the base station is far off and all the nodes are directly communicating, all would get depleted of their energy, and more specifically the nodes which are far away, they would get depleted faster. So it is better that the long distance transmission is not done by every node, but by few nodes only. So clustering could help into saving of energy. Lifetime of a sensor node is an important performance metric, as already highlighted. How you define, again, a number of definitions exist for defining lifetime. It could be said that the instant when the network was deployed to the instant the network gets dysfunctional. So that could be defined as the lifetime. The network gets dysfunctional is when again defined by various ways. So depending on the application, all the definitions come under this when according to the application. So if in a network any one node is dead, it is important. Each node is significant. The data of each node is significant. Then we can say that the network is dysfunctional and the lifetime is over. Or in a network, if you have 100 nodes and 10% of the nodes can die, the network is functional. So depending on the application, whether a number of nodes are sufficient or not, 50% of the nodes are sufficient in a network for observing, then it's fine. Lifetime could be declared like that. So depending on the application, we have so many definitions. When one single node has been dead or depleted of its energy, we say that the network is dead, total network is dead. or network could be dead not only due to energy depletion, but due to loss of coverage also. Certain area is not being functional. In certain region, one corner of the network, all the nodes are dead. The data is not being reported from certain portion of the network. Then you can say that the network is now dysfunctional or the lifetime is over. Various factors are there depending on the network architecture. Network could be flat, hierarchical, even sensor network with mobile access. You can have mobile base station that can move around the network to gather the data. So that is sensor network with mobile access. The data collection process could be event driven, on demand driven, or continuous reporting type, right? Another issue of concern is sensor coverage. We say that coverage is important. The whole network should be covered. What is the sense if certain area is depleted, devoid of sensors due to non-functional sensors? In certain area, in certain corner of the network, all the nodes are dysfunctional, then we say it is devoid of sensors. Data is not being reported for from certain region of the network. So coverage is equally important, should cover the whole network. Again, for that we have, depending on the number of sensors we can deploy, with depending on the application, because it's all application specific, whether the whole area of interest, region of interest is being covered satisfactorily, we say it is taking care of the coverage, whether the network is connected or not, these two terms are related. If we have transmission range, the communication range as specified by the manufacturer, and the sensing range is another thing. Sensing unit, transmitting unit, transceiving unit. So sensing range is lesser and transmission range is larger than that usually. So if the transmission range is greater than or equal to twice of the sensing range, it implies for the domain that coverage is there. And coverage is there means it is connected. The network has to be connected also. It should be able to communicate. Connected means covering is there with the sensing part, means it is sensing the data. And connected is related to communication, means it is able to communicate to the other end. The protocols are there for this topology control. Various protocols have been developed for clustering, for backbone construction, duty cycle control. For each approach, number of protocols are there. This is just a basic protocol, direct communication protocol, without doing any control. So if directly, no organization you are doing, just directly raw data is being transferred, then I said that all nodes would transmit to the base station, and it was going to be energy expensive, because drainage would be very faster. Certain nodes would be quickly deployed of its energy. The nodes which are farther off the distance, because of the greater propagation loss, they would be quickly dead, devoid of their energy, and become dysfunctional. It is suitable only when the network is very small scale, then it's okay. And otherwise it is not suitable. You can make the network nodes take turns transmitting to the BS, but then here also delay would be there. So better is to make only few nodes transmit the raw data, and even not the raw data, it should be processed. Before transmitting, each node should process the data, do certain operation like aggregation, signal processing, certain depending on the application, should combine the data and then transmit. So one of the method that helps into all this is clustering. You can see in this diagram that various nodes were deployed. Then the nodes which were within the communication range, they have been grouped as clusters. So you have in this networks few nodes deployed and organized into 4 clusters. Need not be that all clusters are of equal size, means number of nodes gathered in each cluster is uniform, need not be. It could be non-uniform. but it should not be that a certain node is left isolated. Maybe in certain region, no nearby node is there, and then it is isolated. Then it itself would have to communicate every time, and it will be dead quickly. So here you have organized into clusters, into hierarchical structure. So it's not a flat network, it's a hierarchical network. You have the without filled circles, they are acting as the sensors, and then one which are filled up, solid circles, they are acting, they are also ordinary sensors, all are normal sensors only, but playing extra role. As the headship role is there, so they are acting as a cluster head. So one of the node would be identified as the cluster head. The issue of concern here is major issue, central issue is that how to elect the cluster head, which node should operate as the cluster head. Because the node which is acting as the cluster, as you can see in this diagram, the normal sensor nodes, ordinary sensor nodes, which are not acting as cluster head, they are just sensing and transferring the data to the head member. But the head member is doing the signal processing or merging of the data, aggregation function, and then receiving data from its neighbors, members, and then aggregating and then transferring that packet to the BS, directly reporting to the BS. So it may be long distance transmission, and maybe that if the certain node is acting as the cluster head for a long time, it may get depleted of its energy very quickly. So we have to rotate the role of the cluster head, even as we do in any organization. The head is not fixed for a large span of time, but the role is rotated among various members of the organization in rotation basis. So same approach could be used here, and then data would be gathered at the BS and ultimately through the internet, or it would be transferred to the end user. So the infrastructure is hierarchical. As I said, it could be designed into various levels, maybe level 1, 2, 3, depending on the application, number of nodes in the network. One such very popular protocol that has been devised and has gained too much of popularity, that is called low energy adaptive clustering hierarchy protocol. That was devised by Wendy Hinserman during her PhD at MIT, USA. So what is proposed here? Clustering approach is proposed in wireless sensor networks. It was proposed for continuous data gathering model. It could be done for event monitoring even. So the clusters are not here static. It was compared with a static clustering. So dynamic clustering approach is used. Every time the clustering would be undergoing the process. Means new clusters, new organization of the network would be there. Grouping of the nodes into clusters would be new after every cycle of data transmission. When one cycle is finished, means all the data reaches to the base station, means one cycle is over, one round of operation is over, then for another round, again clustering could be executed. So, and the nodes which are acting as cluster heads could even be rotated in every round of operation. Various approaches are used, means how to transmit the data in single hop or multi-hop approach to minimize. So research has undergone into this also. Various advantages you'll find as of other approaches, as of topology control, that network scalability could be achieved, energy consumption could be reduced, data aggregation could be performed easily by the cluster head, load balancing could be achieved, spatial reuse of the resources could be made, network topology could be stable, and so on. Interference could be reduced. So various applications which are for continuous reporting, it could be suitable. This is the communication module. That how communication for organizing of this node. You have a node which has transmitter, receiver. So the packet is of various bits, length, L bit size is the packet length. Then a transmitter would have the transmitter electronics, it would have the amplifier circuitry. So how to have this transmission, the communication organized and develop the equation for it. The distance of transmission is D, and the receiver again would have the receiver electronics depending again on the packet length. So you could have the energy consumption taken care of by this model. This is called the first order radio energy model, which has been used widely and specifically devised for that clustering paper, as I already highlighted, the low energy adaptive clustering hierarchy protocol. We come to the application part. As already seen, everywhere we have sensors. Think of any application. So the driving force has always been for any technology development is military. So defense sector is the foremost. So for various applications in the defense sector, you can use it for battlefield surveillance, for monitoring of the forces, the equipments, etc. Environmental applications are there in any sector you can think of in the environment, for measurement of anything. For health sector, you have so many now, telemonitoring, and drug administration even could be monitored with this. The dosage could be monitored with the sensors, that the precise level of dosage is administered into the patient. The tracking and monitoring of the patients could be done, of the doctors even could be done with the help of sensors. Each patient could be equipped with sensors on his bed itself, and alerts could be raised whenever any parameter is changing or in critical position. Home applications, of course, are there, as we already highlighted, and the environment in the home also requires smart lighting, smart appliances, etc., to be controlled, monitored. Commercial applications in other sectors also, in cities, in vehicles, in any office for air quality control, any lighting control, smart, any feature in the industry sector, anywhere you can have. Structural health monitoring also, vibration sensors could be deployed. Initially, we had the wired ones, wired sensors were there. So they, with the wired network, what all disadvantages you have. Similarly here, it would have, the installation would be difficult, but with wireless you have these advantages. So in structural health monitoring, the structures in the buildings, also smart buildings are now developed. For earthquake monitoring, you have deployed the sensors into the building, into the walls, into the floors. Sensors are monitoring. Otherwise, by visually inspecting, you cannot see even the minor cracks. But with sensors, observations at the end user, it can be monitored that vibration, earthquake effect is, what is the earthquake effect, if any vibration occurs, if the building is going to collapse, building or bridges or tunnels, pipelines, anywhere in the structures. One such application is highlighted here is for earthquake monitoring. It was deployed at Reventador in South America. So sensors were deployed. They were gathering the data. And for volcanic eruption also, they can be deployed. So this is the application which is sensing piezoacoustic events. Surveillance application is there. So the idea originally was to have a smart dust project. So the idea was that the planet itself, the whole planet would be equipped with sensors, and it would be of the size of a grain of a sand. And DARPA is the Advanced Research Project Agency Defense Organization, University of California at Berkeley, USA. They had developed this idea of sensor networks, and already I've shown you the sensor nodes being manufactured and designed there. And surveillance application, of course, is there to monitor the enemy forces. Home automation is there in the Pentagon building, a defense building in USA, that was also equipped with sensors for management of the temperature, for management of the lighting. So energy saving could be achieved with the help of this. Environmental applications are there. The species which are rare, they could be monitored. Endangered species life cycle could be monitored. Flood detection could be there. Precision agriculture could be there. So zebras, which are in South Africa in rare now, they could be tracked. Their monitoring could be done. Forest fire detection could be done by deploying them. Alerts could be raised and immediately action could be taken. Habitat monitoring could be there, as already highlighted. So University of California at Berkeley had this project to study the species of a endangered species, breeding habit of an endangered species. In the healthcare sector also, it has application. as already highlighted, for monitoring of the activities of the elderly persons whenever they are standing, if they are able to stand or they are fallen. So alerts could be raised and reached to the doctors for monitoring or for administrating of the drugs. So body area networks has developed, and WBAN it is called. So research is there into this area also. Finally, I would like to conclude that we have seen that nowadays, what is the goal? We want that every piece of information should be sampled, collected, analyzed. So we want the data to be sampled, not only by collection, it should be stored. Big data is therefore emerging, and analyzed with the help of intelligence, embedded systems, IoT, cloud computing approach, etc. IoT, because of this, new scenarios have been there, new challenges have been there in wireless sensor networking, as already discussed. We have so large information we have seen that is there because of the so many applications of the sensors, automation required in every field. So that could be handled only by cloud services. So the paradigm of cloud computing was also discussed. We have adopted wireless sensor networks in any sector already seen, in industrial sector, in cities, in homes, in offices, in every sector we have seen the deployment of wireless sensor networks. So with this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for the nice interaction and kind words. I request now all the participants, if they have any question, they could ask ma'am. I think, ma'am, there's a question in the chat by Mr. Abhishek. He is asking, is it possible to design WAN network using wireless sensor networks with the feature of concurrent access and distributed antenna system, ma'am? Over to you, ma'am.
Design of wireless. Pardon?
Ma'am, the question is, yeah, question is there in the chat, ma'am, regarding wireless sensor networks, ma'am. Shall I repeat the question, ma'am?
It is readable. To design a wireless WAN network. Okay, wide area network. WAN, he's meaning wide area network using wireless sensor network with the feature of concurrent access and wide area network design. Okay, you understand wide area network? So wireless sensor networks means what you want, which application. You have, yeah, it is wide area network, but what application?
Hello.
Network you have written, no? Wide area network.
Yes, ma'am. This is wide area network.
Yeah, that I got, but I'm saying that you want.
Actually, ma'am, my question is that is it possible to design the feature of concurrent access? Like I'm using multimedia also, I'm using video streaming also, I'm transferring the text messages, I'm transferring the video messages. All it means simultaneously I'm accessing the network. And along with the help of distributed antenna system, is it possible to design using wireless sensor? Because wireless sensor network is meant for normally LAN or normally for MAN, but wide area network has a range of kilometers, miles of
Yeah.
kilometers. So is it possible to design if I'm using distributed antenna system along with WS?
Means the thing is impossible, but then complexities would be there. You have to see what all additional things you have to incorporate, isn't it?
What kind of components, ma'am, we require if someone is like to implement such kind of network?
No, first look into means area just you want, no? If you have the design of local area network, then for a wide area network, What is the difference, wide area network and local area network?
Ma'am, wide area network means I'm covering about
The coverage area.
city.
Coverage
Yes, ma'am.
area is
Coverage area.
one
Yes, ma'am.
difference.
Coverage area is larger. Yes.
No, I'm asking about the communication paradigm. Do you know difference in LAN and WAN? In the communication paradigm even, you have two types of modes of transmission. No, you have broadcast type and which one? Point-to-point network. So which one goes
Yes, ma'am.
for wide network? For which one you will press?
Point to point, we can go for the point to point because in that case, if I observe some failure in my network, then I can easily rectify that failure.
Yeah, for a wide area network, you will go for point-to-point network. For a
Yes,
local
ma'am.
area network, you can think of using broadcast paradigm. Okay.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
wireless
Yes.
networks, they could be peer-to-peer network feature also, but basically the nature of wireless sensor network already highlighted is broadcast type. So
Okay,
of course,
okay.
different could be there because wide area network supports not broadcast type, no, it supports point-to-point network.
Mhm. So, is this is a research issue in WSN network, no, ma'am?
Yeah, constraints are there, no, as already highlighted so many constraints. So
Okay,
broadcast
okay.
paradigm used and wide area network is
Mhm.
not supporting broadcast type. So of course it is not suitable.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, I am
Yeah.
Rupinder.
Yeah.
Ma'am, like you told that there is a cloud computing. Ma'am, is there cloud computing is same as a data center? Like we differentiate how we differentiate both of these? Can you explain it? And how we provide a service regarding a infrastructure as a service through the cloud computing? Can you please elaborate it?
Yeah. You want cloud computing infrastructure, no?
Yes, ma'am. Is it same as a data center or is there is something different? Like cloud computing is only software based, and I think in future cloud computing replace the data center. Is it possible or something else?
It has so many forms, no? Cloud computing is a wider term. Data center is storing, isn't it? Infrastructure
Oh,
as a service is a paradigm that could be used. It is enabling the user to provide computing and storage resource. So infrastructure is being used. Resource is being provided to the user as a virtual machines, virtual storage units. So users can configure, manage the virtual machine instances, virtual storage. Users can deploy operating systems, their applications on their choice on the virtual resources provisioned in the cloud. So
okay,
cloud
like
service provider is managing the underlying infrastructure. The service provider would manage it. Yeah.
okay, ma'am. And you also told that there is a cluster head. Ma'am,
Yeah.
what is the difference? What is the meaning of cluster head? It is only gathering the data or something else? Means how? Why we select this cluster head
Yeah.
to talk? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Please.
It's same as ordinary node, as I said. It's not means certain extra features. Can be extra also, means extra. And this is the initial energy level. Initial energy could be equal. Not all the nodes are homogeneous type. Network could be heterogeneous, homogeneous. Heterogeneous in certain ways, like transmission range of each sensor could be different. Certain sensors you can equip with more range, transmission range, more energy level could be deployed. But in general, what was the original protocol as I devised in by Wendy Hinselman, low energy adaptive clustering hierarchy protocol, there it was assumed that all nodes are homogeneous, same energy level. So cluster head is one certain node out of a group of nodes which is given extra role like in a department, you have a head, no? So it is same ordinary faculty which acts as a departmental head. It's not that some extra capability she or he has. Same faculty role, she's playing extra role. Apart from teaching role, research role, she's also doing administrative role, that is headship role. So that is extra ability she has to perform. Certain duties extra have been given, okay, to certain node. That is only. And extra duty what? That it has to take the data from its member nodes. So in reception of the data, certain energy would be consumed. Then merge that data, means process that data, not directly transfer that raw data, but perform certain operation, either aggregation operation, summarizing it, combining it, beamforming it, whatever, depending on the application. And then reporting the data directly to the base station. Base station is again a sensor. It is a more powerful node, you can say. So in terms of energy or location, it is maybe inside the network, maybe away from the network. Base station, practically we have base stations, depending on the application, again, usually outside the network, okay, far away from the network could be, or nearby. So, but not necessarily to every cluster it is nearby. Certain location would be there for a base station. So cluster head has a different role, extra role, not only normal sensing role, reception, transmitting, each node is doing. Each node is sensing the data, each node is transmitting the data to this, but not to directly to the base station, but to the cluster head, nearby node, so that the distance of transmission has reduced, the number of transmissions has reduced by using this technique. Right? Any problem in understanding?
Yes, yes. Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
So are there any more questions, participants? Are there any more questions? Okay, if you have any questions, you can forward to me. I can interact with an expert and can revert you back. So now for the formal thanks, I ask Ashi. Over to you, Beta.
Thank you.
Once again, I thank on behalf of Electronics and Communication Engineering to Dr. Vrinda Gupta for sparing her valuable time and being a part of our FTP. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now announcements for the participants. We have closed our day 3. We'll be sharing the feedback form with you in a short while, and we'll be joining for tomorrow's session at 10 a.m. Just be prepared to join for 5 minutes before 10 a.m. for the day 4 session. And day 4 session will be taken by Dr. Jyoti Gedia. She'll be talking about on-chip optical interconnects for future multi-processors. So with these words, I'll close the session for today. Thank you all for sparing your time. Thank you.